How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to our next video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the layout of Silver Lake sand dunes, where to drive, where not to drive, and we're going to get a little bit into how to drive. So let's get right into it. So obviously here is a Google Earth image of the sand dunes. In orange, you can see that line I made. That outlines where you can drive. Everything inside of that orange half circle is where you can drive. Everything outside of it is undrivable. So for example, the lake, you can definitely not drive in the lake. All right, now that we've got that established, these tannish, yellowish things, those are the main hills in the sand dunes. So for all intents and purposes, you basically have a cluster of 4 hills. Those are your main hills. You've got one lone hill up here in the top left. This is called Sunset Hill. We'll get into that shortly. And then right here in the middle, this isn't so much of a hill, but it is a high spot in the dunes where a lot of accidents happen, so we're going to talk about it in this episode. So, down here in the bottom right is the dune parking lot. This is where every vehicle will eventually come in from the road, and you're going to follow, when you come into the dunes, you're going to follow this red line I drew, and you're going to make a left, and that's going to turn you right into the dunes. This is called the entrance. So when you reach the entrance, you've pretty much got 2 main options. You can either go left, or you can either go straight. You cannot go right. All this area back here is directional. You can only go towards the hills. And for all intents and purposes, when I say hills, I am only referring to those 4 main hills that I just previously talked about. I'm not talking about Sunset Hill up here in the top, and I am not talking about the little hill I was talking about in the middle. Sunset Hill, there we go. Now that's not going to be confused with anything else. So let's talk about a very easy line. Let's do 3 lines. When I say lines, I mean routes you take through the dunes. I call those lines kind of like a racing line, if you're familiar with that. So let's do an easy line, a medium line, and a hard line. So for you first-time duners, I recommend doing the easy line first. That means when you get into the entrance of the dunes, let's zoom in a little bit. So when you get into the entrance of the dunes, you are going to basically just go straight. Now there's going to be cars crossing your path because they're going to try to go up the hills. So this is one of the busiest parts of the dunes. You're going to want to keep an eye on all the vehicles there, and you're going to basically just keep as much distance as you can and just safely move across this area. It's not very difficult. I might be making it sound harder than it is. I'm just trying to portray the intensity of focus you should have. Being in the dunes is not the time to be on your phone while you're driving. It's not the time to be kind of half paying attention. This is the time where you want to really pay attention and focus. So I'm just trying to drive that home. I'm not trying to sound like, oh, this is so difficult. I just want to drive home the fact that just pay attention and you'll be fine. So once you reach the end of Test Hill, you're going to want to turn left, and this is going to put you on this little kind of rise right here. Now, this isn't particularly big, but it's important to mention everything above that little rise and everything below it is a valley. This is kind of a high spot in its area. So when you drive through here, it's always best that when you let me make this very clear. When you drive, try to meet the end of this kind of rise here. That way, you can drive right off the spine of this little hill, and you can look to your right and you can look to your left, and you should be able to see cars on this side and this side. The cars on this side cannot see cars on this side and vice versa, but you being on the high ground in the middle can see both sides. That puts you in the safest possible position. So let's just say you want to turn left. So you turn left down this little hill. It's about a 20-30 foot descent, and you go down. You will want to stay towards the hills because this whole area here is a sand drag strip, and cars will be going up to 100 miles an hour in this small area. You will definitely, between here and here, there's a pretty good chunk of space. I think I overshot the size of the drag strip a little bit here. you will definitely be able to see the drag strip before you're in any danger of a fast car hitting you. But just, sooner rather than later, make your way over closer to the hills. You'll see basically posts dotted along the hills, marking the foot of the hills. So you're going to go down, you're going to watch all the fancy cars racing their 1,000 horsepower dune buggies and their badass Jeeps and their badass Raptors and all that. And you're gonna get down here, and this kind of is a zone that people will drive in any direction they want. All these lines I drew, that could be a direction you could drive in. I mean, there's really like limitless possibilities right there. So just keep an eye out. Make sure your head's on a swivel. You got rear view mirrors, use them. You got side view mirrors, use them. You got a windshield, use it. Look through your windshield. So at this point, you're going to want to hang a big old right, and you're going to drive through what a lot of us call the flats. This is the flattest section of the dunes. This is where people go high speed, aside from the drag strip. So you're going to be going through the flats. Ironically, the flats have whoops right here. Generally, at least, the wind does change every day, so the whoops could be worse, could be less, depending on the day, but they're not too bad. Right around here is where you'll find all the bathrooms in the dunes. So I think it's 12 outhouses, but next year they might have more. They seem to add a couple every year. That's basically just a bunch of fancy outhouses with, that's with some roping, kind of segregating them from the main driving area. So that kind of protects the people using them. So you're going to drive through here, and at this point, you're going to see a speed limit sign, and it's going to say 25 miles an hour somewhere in this zone. So you got to slow down to 25 miles an hour. Now you're passing the beach. Now the beach in the sand dunes, that is basically from there to here is all a speed limited zone. And if a DNR sees you, a DNR is basically the police of the sand dunes. If they see you driving over 25 miles an hour, they can't ticket you. And you have to go to court for that. It's super annoying. Imagine having to drive all the way back to Silver Lake for a court ticket. How dumb would that be? So the beach is a pretty busy part of the dunes just because everybody likes to park their vehicles along the beach, and they like to watch the waves. That kind of creates a little bit of congestion when it comes to driving, because people like to drive both directions, up and down the beach, depending on where they want to go. So just, again, keep your head on a swivel, watch out, and you'll be just fine. All right, so you're going to drive this way up the beach, and you're going to want to make a right, and you're going to just basically go right back to where you were. So at this point, you're kind of in this depression that we were talking about. So you won't be able to see over the other side of this center hill at all. And there you go. Now you're going to basically loop back just about to where you started. So that is the first and easiest way you can go through the sand dunes. Let me just erase this line, and we will get right into the next one. The next line is similar, but it is a little bit trickier because it involves a little bit more technical driving. So this way, you could do two ways. We're going to do them real quick. You could go down the beach, around, and up. Now this is a little bit more dangerous because now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going up this hill without being able to know what's on the other side. The way you do that, or the way that I do that, is if I'm trying to drive up the hill, and this goes both ways, up or down doesn't really matter. If I'm right here, I'm going to follow another car, and I'm going to give them about 200 feet space in front of me, and I'm going to just follow them. If they go over, then I should be able to go over. If they hit somebody, I'll see that, and I will not go over. So that's a little quick way to get around that whole danger thing and let somebody else go in front of you. So basically, let's go back. So our line continued. We're going up the hill. Now what you could do is make a little S, and you kind of got to have some power to do this. You're going to have to do a little bit of a drift. And you could actually go up Sunset Hill. So Sunset Hill gets pretty steep. It's let's scroll over real quick. So if we pretend that we're going to draw the side profile of Sunset Hill, there are days, and I mean, it's a steep hill, and then it levels off at the top. The top is very smooth and very flat. But the entrance of it, that gets pretty steep. I'm not exaggerating. It's a big one. That's for sure. So if you are confident, you're capable, or you're confident in your abilities to do that, go ahead. What you can do is you can drive up Sunset Hill, you can drive across the spine of it, and then you basically go down. Now going down Sunset Hill, you don't want to turn left or right. When you're going downhill, you want to turn straight towards the ground. If you turn to the left or you turn to the right, you could roll your vehicle, and we'll talk about the mechanics of that in a few minutes. So there you go. Now you're going down Sunset Hill. Now you're in a location of the dunes called the back 40. Now this is kind of an unofficial term. I don't know where it came from, but a bunch of people that I know, they just call it the back 40, so it's just kind of stuck. So when you're in the back 40, this is a directional area. The whole dunes, or the whole back 40, I'm sorry, has to go towards the hills. You cannot go backwards, and there is a bunch of signage posted. So when you're in a directional area, it's obvious. There are plenty of signs. There is a warning. It's that part you don't have to think about. Just pay attention. So the back 40 consists of some small hills, and they're not very large, but you know, they're all right. So you're going to basically go up the back 40, up the hills that it has to offer, and it's going to spit you out right in front of Test Hill where you started. So that is our second route. Now we're going to go over our third route of the dunes, and there's not only 3. Of course, you can mix and match these however you want. I'm just kind of giving you a ballpark or an estimate, you could say, of ways you could drive through the dunes. Feel free to experiment and do what you want in a safe manner. Okay, so now we're going to go over the hills. This is the hardest. I like to do this. I think it's the most fun. If you get real motion sick, maybe don't go over the hills. I like going over the hills. So obviously you're going to go in through entrance, you're going to immediately take a right, and you're going to go up Test Hill. So before we even tackle Test Hill, let's go back over to our side right here, and we're going to make a little diagram of Test Hill. So I have this other hill kind of mocked up. We're going to move this out of the way just for right now, and we're going to draw our Test Hill. There we go. Now we have some space. So let's make our Test Hill. That's a bit steep. Let's do that one more. There we go. That's a little better. But it kind of feels like that when you're driving. It kind of feels like you're going straight up. That's better. That's actually really accurate because Test Hill feels like it has 2 sharp angles. Okay. So here's the base of the hill. Sorry about that. Here's the base of the hill, and in comparison, we're going to draw our truck real quick. There's your truck compared to the Test Hill. The Test Hill is a very large hill. There's a reason it's called Test Hill. It's the biggest hill in the dunes. It's a test for your vehicle and you. If you can drive over it, you can make it over everything else in the sand dunes. So I drive a Gen 1 Raptor, and a Gen 1 drives just a little different to a Gen 2, and that Gen 2 drives just a little different than a Gen 3. So take what I'm about to say right now with a grain of salt. You could have a Gen 1 like me, but you could also have 800 horsepower. I don't know what you drive. I'm going to give you a ballpark that works for my truck about 85% of the time, unless the sand is really churned up for some reason. So what I like to do is before I even decide to floor the gas, I'm going to look at Test Hill very carefully. There could be whoops on Test Hill, and these whoops, if you go over at the wrong speed, if you go over at the wrong speed, you could destroy your truck if you don't have the suspension to handle it. So before you even decide to go up Test Hill, look for the smoothest possible path you can take, that smoothest line, and that's what you take. You make sure there are no cars in your way, no people in your way, and you take it. So, with that being said, let's get rid of our bumps here because we just found our nice smooth line, and we're going to take our nice smooth line. Okay. So, if you notice this hill I drew, and I kind of mentioned this as I drew it, this hill has 2 angles. You've got basically this angle down here, this kind of shallow angle, and then you have this kind of steep angle. And as you go to Silver Lake and you actually look at Test Hill, chances are you'll see what I'm talking about. It kind of has a two-angle thing. At least it kind of gets that midway through the dune season as vehicles kind of wear into it a little bit. So when you're driving, I like to give my truck about half throttle in this whole first angle. I like to give it anywhere from 50% to 80% throttle, depending on how smooth it is. If it's real bumpy, I don't go hard because I don't want to go 80 miles an hour over 24-inch size bumps. That'll destroy my truck. So, your throttle input will vary. And then once you reach this second section of the, or the second angle rather, I'm giving it 100% throttle, no matter what. And then when you reach this top 15% of the hill or so, I just completely let off the gas. I don't hit the brake, I don't hit the gas. I just let the natural momentum of the truck just coast. And what that normally does is that just carries you right over the top. And then once you feel your truck slowing down to about 5-6 miles an hour, you just give it a light amount of gas, and then you just kind of crawl over the hill. The worst thing you can do is stop your truck, because if you stop your truck, let's say we're going to draw a very simple truck right here. Let's say this is your truck and you stop right here. I don't care what you drive. I don't care what size tires you have. I don't care if all 4 of your tires are pedal tires. If you stop at this kind of an angle, you're not gonna be able to start again and then continue going forward. You're just gonna dig your whole truck into the sand, and I'll show you what's gonna happen. You're gonna take your truck and you're gonna dig it all the way into the sand just like that, and your tires are gonna be below the sand line, and you're gonna have to dig it out. So the best thing you can do if you stop is it might be scary, but reverse your truck back down all the way and then start again. All right? Now, if you decide you want to stop on the peak of Test Hill, that's your prerogative. A lot of people do that so that they can watch the craziness unfold as other dune vehicles drive around down at the base of the Test Hill and down at the drag strip. You can see a lot from the top of Test Hill. Now, the other thing you definitely don't want to do is park on the back of the hill. Let's just say you park on the back of the hill and your truck is, yeah, there we go. There's our downslope of the hill. If you park right there and there's another guy and he's coming in hot, let's say there's some guy with a 700 horsepower, fully built, long travel dune buggy, and he's coming in hot and he wants to jump this. Well, he doesn't see you, so he jumps it, and then he lands right on top of you. I've seen that happen before, and it's devastating. Absolutely, under no circumstances, I don't care if you're trying to recover somebody or what, do you drive and park on the backside of a hill. Now, if for whatever reason, let's scroll over a little bit. If for whatever reason you have to drive along the base of a hill, so let's move everything over, and we're going to select this truck right here one more time. We're going to move this truck, and let's say he's stuck, okay? And we're going to connect our hill one more time with the area that this truck is. Let's say this red truck here is stuck. Now, here's how you get it out. You get about as many people as you can. I don't care if it's 10 or 15, as many people as you can, and you get them to park on the top of the hill and block traffic. Then you get this guy unstuck. Under no circumstances do you not have a spotter and then try to get him unstuck, because if somebody comes in hot and they don't see you, they're going to hit this guy and it's going to be not good. So if you have to be in that situation, at least have a spotter or 10. If I'm up there, before I even attempt to tow somebody out, first off, I only tow people that I know. That's just a personal rule that I have. If I'm going to tow somebody out, I call pretty much everybody that I can that is up there at that time, and I say, hey, get out here. We're on this hill. We're on the east side of this hill. Need your help. Can you spot for us? So that's what we do. Anyways, back to our driving on the hill. So you go up Test Hill. Now we've explained our throttle and and how you do all that and how much throttle to give and when to let off. You're going to go over your hill. You're going to start cresting it. Now when you crest it, like I said, basically just kind of let it coast. Just go slow just so you don't stop. You basically want to just barely stop as your truck is flat on the hill. Now notice I said flat. You can stop when it's flat. That's no problem. When it's flat, you're going to want to take just a couple seconds to observe everything below you so that when you are coming up to the backside of a hill, let's go back to our demonstration one more time. When you're coming up to the backside of a hill, there we go. It gives you those couple seconds that you stop, give you just enough time to look at all the imperfections. So, oh, look at that, there's a drop off here. Oh, look at that, there's another drop off here. Those couple seconds allow you to look so that you can hit your brakes or your gas accordingly so you don't fly and then do a jump by accident. The last thing you want to do is air out your truck when you're 600 miles away from your house and have to drive it home, but you just bust your front differential. So, anyways, now that we've got all that taken care of, let's go over driving through our hills. So, you go over your test hill, you have a lot of fun. You're going to go over your second hill, you're having a lot of fun. And now you reach third hill. Now, like I said, the dunes can change because of the wind. Generally, a couple rules apply. Test hill, the first hill, is always the biggest. Year after year, I've been going there for 15 years, and every year test hill is the biggest hill. That doesn't change. There's just a lot of friggin' sand. Now, the next thing that seems to be year after year is third hill is always the steepest. And the gap between third hill and second hill isn't as generous as I made in this drawing. It's actually quite close together. So you want to be able to keep up your speed when you're going up third hill, or else you might find that you get stuck 2 or 3 times. No problem, just put it in reverse, back down and give it another shot. Make sure you're in 4-wheel drive. It's possible in 2-wheel drive, but you got to have some freaking speed. You got to have a pretty built truck to do this all in 2-wheel drive. At least, you know, from what I've seen. A lot of people that do this in 2-wheel drive to maintain their velocity and not get stuck, they have to be going about 60 miles an hour everywhere. To hit 60 miles an hour and hit whoops and jumps, your truck should be pretty beefy. So, you're going to go over third hill. You're having a great old time. And now you've reached the fourth hill. This is called exit hill. Exit hill, you have 2 options. You can go to the right. You can make another loop. You can go up the Sunset Hill if you want. You can go over this flat area, or you can make a loop and go down to the flats, maybe do a drag race if you want. All kinds of paths you can take. But if you decide that you're done with your day in the dunes, you can take a left, go down exit lane, and that spits you out right here in the parking lot, where you'll go into the parking lot, and you can be on your merry way. So that's just a general idea of how you can drive. Of course, like I said before, there are other ways you can drive. There are other paths you can take. Quick example, if I just wanted to maybe test out my truck, if I was tuning my suspension, I would go right down the beach, around Sunset Hill, and back here. Back here, there's a lot of whoops. So if I wanted to test out my suspension, let's say I just tuned it, that's where I'd take it. Or if I just put a badass power steering rack in my truck and I wanted to push it to its limits, I could go down here and I could actually go into these trees. Now, most of these trees is pretty tight. A lot of people take their 4-wheelers up through these trees, but there are paths you can take for trucks where they really zigzag. I wouldn't recommend it in a 4-door Raptor. It's kind of big for these trails, but let's just say you have a badass power steering system you want to test out. That's where you do it. There's all kinds of routes you'll find, and as you drive through the dunes, you'll find that there's other routes that you want to test out, or other areas you see that maybe other people don't. So go for it. You know, as long as you're safe about it, there's no reason you shouldn't go for it. You're there, why not? Okay, so that covers a general layout of our sand dunes. Let's talk about a couple ways to safely go down a hill. Now, I mentioned before that when you go down a hill, you want to be going as vertical as possible. Now, That might have made sense, that might not have, but if it didn't, we're going to talk about that right now. So let's take our makeshift hill and let's fix it up a little bit so it's a little bit smoother, just for the sake of demonstration. So let's take our pretend Raptor. Let's circle it. There we go. So when you're driving your Raptor down the hill, the last thing you want to do is slam the brakes. Turn left or right. Either one of those. Not a good idea. The best thing you can do is hit the gas and just keep going straight. Now, I mentioned before, oh yeah, if there's bumps, you might want to hit the brakes here and there. Now, that's totally okay. You don't want to you don't want to slam your brakes to the point where your front end dips down and everything. What happens is, in an aggressive situation, let's just say you slam your brakes, your weight transfers to the front of your truck, your front tire digs into the sand, and your hood, dips down because the weight transfers to the front of your truck. All of a sudden, the center of mass of your truck is now more forwards than the center of your front tire. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when the center of mass of your truck is in front of the center of your front tire, you can enter the event of your truck having a total rollover. And that's not good. Likewise, if your truck, and this might be a hair tricky to draw, but let's just say, let's get a fresh part of the page. There we go. Okay, so we're going to draw basically a hill looking head on at it. So, here we go. Let's do this. This is a hill, and this is the rest of our hill. So our hill kind of is one of these, all right? So let's draw our truck, and our truck is going to be very simple. Here's the bed of our truck. That's our truck bed. You've got a Gen 1 Raptor, so here's your roof, and here's your awesome hood vents on your Gen 1 Raptor. Oops, they go this way, don't they? All right, so there's our truck. We're going to draw our tires in orange, all right? So let's just pretend for this demonstration, you decide to turn your front tires left while you're driving. So that is one of the worst things you can do, because what's going to happen is, let's circle this truck one more time. You turn your front tires to the left for whatever reason, and your truck starts turning to the left. When you get to about this point, this is where vehicles roll over, because now your truck is your truck wants to go this way because its tires are rotating that way. Gravity is pulling it this way. So your front tire, center of your front tire is right here. Your center of mass is here. Your center of mass is now opposite to the direction you're trying to go in. What's going to happen is, because physics can't break, your rear corner of your truck is going to try to go in front of the front corner of your truck, and you're going to roll over rear over front. That's a horrible situation. Now, what if you try to turn the other direction? Well, if you try to turn the other direction, oops, let's get another tire. There you go, that's a funky tire. We can erase this one and draw our other tire. You try to turn that way, bad news, because the same exact thing is going to happen to you, where your truck, you're going to turn that way, and you're going to roll over end over end. So if you're going down a hill, the best thing you can possibly do is just stay straight. Keep those front tires pointed directly straight, and if you are veering off to one side, counter steer. So if you find that your truck is going to end up veering, then counter steer. So let's say you're in a situation and you're hitting your brakes, but your truck starts kind of sliding out from under you, and you're trying to correct it. Then just turn towards gravity. Just keep your wheels turned towards gravity. So your wheels are turning this way, but your body is trying to turn this way. That's okay. Just keep your wheels turned towards gravity. Then you'll be fine. This all might sound strange. It might sound like it's totally obvious, but just for the sake of safety, just remember this, please. This is something that will save your truck, could save your life, could save the life of your passengers. Never turn away from gravity. I have seen so many trucks who think that they are totally badass and they try to turn against gravity because they have enough power for some reason. For some reason, people think, oh, I have enough power, I can do that. No, it doesn't matter how much horsepower you have. Gravity doesn't care. Gravity's pretty darn strong and it'll pull your truck down. The only time I've ever seen a truck, let's take our hill for example, and let's erase this real quick. If you see a truck try to do one of those and they turn up the hill and their truck is basically, that was not a very good rectangle. Let's say this is their truck and their truck is traveling this direction and gravity's pulling it down. They got to have a ridiculous amount of speed to basically, inertia at that point sticks their truck to the ground and they keep going, and then they turn and then their truck is going now diagonal. Keep in mind though, their front tires are still pointed towards gravity. So, with that being said, this concludes our video of how and where to drive in the sand dunes. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much for watching it, and I will see you guys in the next one.